Howdy, Jawad. In this video, we are going to have a starter guide for Dynamo in Revit. If you are new to Dynamo, Dynamo is a visual programming software or plugin for Revit that will allow you to automate your tedious tasks and also will allow you to create a specific automation processes. And on the other hand, also you can create complex geometries like this, and you can create parametric geometries and towers too. But the first step is how to get it and where to find it. You can find the information on dynamo.beam.org, and then you go to the Get Dynamo. But if you are using Revit 2020 and beyond, you don't need to install it. It is pre-installed. But if you want to use it in other softwares like Civil 3D, Alias, Formate, Advanced Steel, and Robot Structure, you can find them here. Or if you are using older versions of Revit, you can download some builds in here. After you've created a project or you open a project, you need to go to the Manage tab, and in here you will have Visual Programming panel, and then we have Dynamo and Dynamo Player. We don't want to work with Dynamo Player in this session, just open Dynamo. Now this is the Dynamo window, and in here let's see the version of it. I just want to show you the version of my Dynamo. In here, let's go to the About, and right now I'm using 2.1, but if you're using 2 or beyond, it's gonna be similar, just a little bit user interface change, but the essentials are same. And then you just need to create a new graph, which we call in Dynamo, the new file you create, we call it graph. And just click on new, and now you're in Dynamo user interface. And then right now you can see I can't rotate or do anything because right now in graph mode, let me just add something. I will explain all of this further in this video. Let's just add one. You can see now right now we are in graph mode, which you can manipulate the graph and nodes. I will talk about all of them, but in here you can change it to geometry part, which you can rotate around the geometry or the points or lines or anything you've created in here. To switch between those environments, you can use here, or you can use Control B as a shortcut. But before doing anything, I have to tell you some basic ideas about here. In here we have the library, which we call node library, when you can find different nodes, which are these are nodes. We call these node, which will be the ingredients to create a great graph. And when you have different nodes, you can connect these nodes with wires, simply as that. Just click on this and connect it to this. You just need to click it, and you don't need to drag it. Just click once and click on the other part that you want to connect. And also in any node we have different parts. We have the title, of course. We have inputs, which you can input some data or anything to that node, and then that node will do some processes for you, and then you will have the output in here. So each node has a title, input, and output. That's a really important concept to understand in Dynamo. Let's just delete them, and let's just start with a simple node. You don't need to summarize all of these. You just need to work with them when you need them, and then you will be more advanced in Dynamo. The first point that I want to show you how to create a simple geometry in just a video. The first point to create a geometry is point most of the time, or majority of the time. So let's just create a point. You can just go to the Revit part and element and do things, or you can, for example, go to the geometry and go to the points and create points. You can see in each the library is categorized by different categories. For example, now I want to create a point. I have to go to the geometry, and then in here we have different parts of geometry: point, solid, surfaces, mesh. But now we want to create a point, so we can go to the point, and then we go to point again. And right now you can see the nodes are categorized in 3 different manner: the plus sign, the bullet sign, thunderbolt sign, and we have the question mark sign. The nodes with the plus sign will create something for you. It can be data or it can be geometry. But under the bullet sign are the modifiers. You can modify your existing data or existing geometry with these nodes. And in here you just extract a data from a point. For example, we have a point with 3 values in x, y, z, and we can extract the x value or y value. That's the point in here. But the fastest way and easiest way to do that, you just right click on the screen and search for the point. Now you can see when I search point, it will show you the nodes. For example, we have point by coordinates, which we are going to use right now. Just select on it and it will add this to your graph. And before doing anything, you can see there is a gizmo in here. Let's go to see what is happening. When you just add a point, let me go to the graph mode again. When you just add a point by coordinate, it will create a point at the origin of your dynamo. It will be on 0, 0, 0, and you can create your point in here. But before doing anything else, I have to show you some settings of Dynamo 2. For example, in Dynamo, you have some preferences that you have to care about. The first thing, before even creating anything in Dynamo, you have to know that Dynamo inherits the project unit. So if you want to work with meter, you have to make sure to adjust it in Revit project. For example, let me put it on meter in here and with 2 decimal places and click on OK and OK. And now let's go to Dynamo. And now in here, if I just type 1, it will be 1 meter, so it inherits the Revit unit. And let's go to the preferences. I will show you something in here too. I will talk about these, but the main part is that when you are creating big graphs, it will be better to put it on manual. I will explain it later. And for the visual settings and these parts, it's not a important part for right now. You can learn them later, but for me, I want to see the edges of the geometry, and that's fine for me for now. And for the file, and that's an important part, you can let's go to the view. You can zoom and pan. Also, you can change the shape of the connectors, which are wires, and you can add or install packages, which are the word for plugins for Dynamo, or pre-built nodes or custom nodes for Dynamo or that other people have created. Those are great, but those are not for beginner level, and I have talked about them in other videos, and also we will talk about them in future videos too. But before going to the next step, make sure to like this video and share it with your friends and colleagues. And also, if you want to get access to all of the exercise files and additional tutorials, make sure to go to our Patreon page. You can find the link in the description. So that's an overview about these settings in here. And now let's just we have the point by coordinate, but we want some inputs for x, y, and z, because I want to create them another place than origin. To do that, you can bring some number. Just right click and search for number, and let's bring the number node in here. And now I just can add, for example, 5 for the x. And before connecting this one to this, see what is happening here. When I just connect this to this, it will change the point in real time, so you don't need to click on run or anything, something like that. When I just click it on x, I can see we have 5 units in our x, and we can add this one to y2, so we will have a point in here. And also, even I can just input this to all of them, and now I have a point in this part of the coordinates. If you want to disconnect for example, disconnect this number from the z or z, you can just click on here and click on the outside, and now it will disconnect that from there. And that's the easiest way to create points for you. But if this number node is not versatile for you. For example, you just want to see the real time of the number to change. You don't want to just type it. You want a slider. You can easily right click and find a slider. Let me bring a slider. We have two kinds of a slider: numbers and integers. Integers doesn't have any decimals, but numbers have decimals. Right now, I just want the numbers without any decimals, so let's bring the integer slider. And now you can connect this with this, and now we have a drop down in here which will show you the minimum of the slider, which is 0 right now, the max 100, and a step. For example, when I bring this to a little, when I change the slider, it will incrementally change the number by 1 watt. But when I change it to 10, the slider will be in 10 steps, so it will be 10 steps between 0 and 100. So that's the way that this works. For now, I want to put it on 1, and the maximum is gonna be 20. And I can change the drop down, and let's go to the geometry part and let's pan a little bit and see it. To rotate, you have to use right click instead of shift. You just place your cursor on the screen and just use the right click, and you will be able to rotate or orbit. And let's back to the graph mode. And you can see when I change this, you will see it in real time. The point is changing the coordinates. But if for the bigger graphs, it may crash to use just carelessly use sliders without any manual runs, because when you just edit something small, it's gonna calculate the effect of it on the whole graph. To prevent from crashing in those big graphs, we have to put the run mode on the manual, because when you put it on manual, when I change this, you can see it's not going to change it in real time. And when I'm sure from the inputs or from all of the nodes, then I can click on run and it will calculate that for me. But for this video, because we are not going to use bigger graphs, I'm just going to put it on automatic. But it is better to put it on manual for bigger graphs. And that's the way to create points in here. But the other thing is that I want to create a list of points. For example, right now I have just a point, so I want to create 10 points by a step of 5, for example. We have to create a sequence or range that will give us a range of numbers or sequence of numbers. They are different a little bit. Let me bring both of them, sequence and range. And they have different inputs. For example, let me just add a number node in here. If you are tired of adding number nodes, just double click on the screen. It will give you a code block that will follow a syntax and will allow you to create numbers, text, or anything you want. But for now, just enter maybe 5. And now you have a number and with the output. For the start, I want to, for example, put 0 maybe. Now that's fine. And you can create another code block for the amount, but you can just press enter in here, and then you will go to the second line, and in here you can add another value for this code block with different output. Let's put it on 100. And if you want to create another value, you have to add semicolon in here, and for the step it's gonna be 5 and semicolon again. But for the last line, you don't need to add semicolon. When you just click outside, it will add the semicolon for the last line automatically. Now let me just add this one to this and this one to this. Let me bring the range in here. So let's see the results in here. To see the results, you have two ways. You can just hold the cursor in here and click on this part, and you can see the list of numbers that you've created, or you can bring a watch node and add the output of this list to the watch node that we have in here. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to use this part because it is much easier. You can see when you are using sequence, it will start from 0 and it will add by the step that you have, for example 5, 0, 5, 10, and it will do it for 100 times. You can see we have 100 numbers in here if you are wondering why it's 99, because in Dynamo we start everything with 0, so plus 99, it's gonna be 100 numbers in here, so be careful about that too. Right now you can see we have the sequence in here. I just want to do it for 10 times, so we have 10 numbers in here. And now when I add the sequence to points by coordinates, it's gonna something interesting gonna happen. Let's connect this list to the X. Now you can see we have 10 points with the 10 different numbers that we had in here. So it's a way that to create bunch of points in a fast way. And I just want to do that for other parts too. I want to have 10 numbers in the Y part of each one too. To do that, you have to for the ranges, just before doing that, let me explain the range too. Let me do this to this. You can see for the range we have a minimum and maximum and a step, and with the numbers that we had, which is 0 for the minimum and maximum 10, and with the step 5 we just have 3 numbers, but you can, for example, decrease the step to 1 and then you will have much more numbers in here. But I don't want to use range right now, and let me Control Z a few steps, and now let me delete this. The next step is to add the sequence for Y2 or for the Y axis 2, but when you do it, you can see it will adjust the X axis points, but where I want to have a grid of points by a step of 5. To do that, we have a concept in Dynamo which is called lacing. I have another video about it. You can watch it on the channel, but in here I just explain it in a short way. You can see when it's on a default lacing mode, it will create a point with the value that we've input in here. But I want to have a grid, so the trick is here to just right click on the node in here, and in the lacing part change it to cross product, and it will create a grid of points with the step that you will specify. This is the range that we will have the numbers in here. So that's the way to convert that part to a grid of points. But if you want to learn about the concept of lacing, you can watch that video too, but I think it's enough for now. Now we have the points. The next step, after we have the points, we can create polygons, or we can create curves as we call them in Dynamo. Let's just create some circles in here, and for the circles I am going to use a node in here which we have in geometry and curves. We can go to the circles. We have different ways to create circles. We have by center point and radius. This is the one that we are going to use, and then we just add the point to the center points, and now we have a circle in each on each point. And for the radius, the default number is 1, but you can change it to, for example, 2. Let me just assign it in here, or you can use a slider, or I'm going to show you to do a more interesting part, and how to create a attractor point for this, because when they are far away from the origin, I'm going to make them bigger. To do that, we have to create a reference point. To do that, just right click on and search for point, and I want to bring 2 sliders to be able to change the numbers parametrically, and then let me assign this one to this, and also I want to create another one. Instead of searching, just scan Control C and Control V, and you will have a copy of it. Now I just connect this one to this, and for the range of it, I think 50 is enough, and for the step 1 is good. And I want to do the same thing for this one. Now I can create a point. I have a point which is here I can change it around. I want to calculate the distance between this point and each of these points. Let's search for distance. We have a node in here, distance 2, and we have the base geometry and other geometries that we want to have the distance 2, and you can see we have all of the distances in here. But there are something that are wrong in here. You can that's not wrong, let's just work with it, and if we had a problem I will show you how to solve it. But for now and for your level right now, it's enough. And now we have the distance to these points, and now we can add these distances to the radius of the circles that we've created earlier. But because the numbers are too high, we have to add a multiplier, because it will there is a problem. We have to add points in here, not the circles. And there's a problem because these numbers are too high. It's gonna be lots of let me just show you. You can see that's not the thing that we want to achieve, so we have to have a multiplier in here to reduce the amount of number that we have here. To do that, just right click and search for multiple assignment in here. And now we want to bring the values in here and multiply it by a low number. Just double click for code block, maybe 0.5, and let me multiply these two together, and you can see we have the lower numbers right now. Now we can just assign this to this. You can see right now we've created our attractor point. We have the attractor point in here, and when we change it, you can see it will change all of the dimensions, and that's the beauty of creating parametric things in Dynamo. And right now I want to do the same. I want to show you how to create surfaces and solids too. We have the circles. Before doing anything, let me group these to group nodes. You just select all of them, Ctrl G, and you can create a groups. These are our points, and for these are our attractor calculation, calc. It will be enough. And now we have the groups in here. It will be much more neat in here. Now we have the circles. To create surfaces from these boundaries, we have to go to the geometry part, surface, and in surface part we have a by patch, which will create a surface from the closed boundary of the curves that we input to them. Let's bring the by patch and in here, and let's just input this to this, and you can see we have the surfaces in here. And when you have the surfaces, you can use a modifier which is thicken, which will give a height to your surface. To do that, let's just search for thicken in here, and now you will just need to assign the surfaces to it, and it will give a thickness to it. But you can assign the right thickness to it you can use a slider or number. Let me bring a slider in here, integer slider with the maximum number of 10, and let's just bring it in here, and you can see we have the surfaces in here. And let's go back to the attractor point to see the results in here. You can see it is amazing to work parametrically because you can change anything in any second. But this is the easiest things. This is one of the easiest things that you can do with Dynamo. Dynamo has lots of more potential. And if you want me to create other episodes for the beginner side of Dynamo, make sure to comment down below. And if you want to learn more advanced topics about Dynamo, like creating this twisted tower in Dynamo, make sure to watch this video in here, and don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and colleagues.